Hello everyone, thank you very much for signing into my live stream. I'm Mr. Matt and this is Dr. Tot, and welcome to SAT ACT Prep. Today is a writing skills day, so we're going to go over some activities pertaining to grammar. Last session we were talking about grammatically constructing or correctly grammatically constructing sentences that contained and, or correlative constructions. Those are the either or, neither nor correlative pairs. We also talked about the definition of a dependent clause versus an independent clause, and we're going to pick back up there today before we get into the rules pertaining to phrases that contain the word of. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you. Okay, so first of all, I want to just start with a refresher. We went over this in the previous session, but remember that an independent clause can stand on its own as a complete sentence. And that's because an independent clause contains a subject, a verb, and sometimes a predicate. So a predicate is just a fancy word for everything else in a sentence. The essential components of a complete sentence or an independent clause are that it has a subject-verb combination. A dependent clause is going to be lacking either a subject or a verb, and it is not a complete sentence. Instead of incomplete sentence, I'm going to say cannot stand on its own. And it lacks either a subject or a verb. Now, one quick and easy way, this is not a grammatical test at all, but it is in many instances a really easy way of telling a complete sentence or an independent clause from a dependent clause. If somebody were to come up to you and just randomly say the statement in question, if it expresses what you feel to express, or if you feel that it expresses the complete thought unit that was intentioned to be or that was trying to be conveyed at that point, that's a pretty clear indication that it usually is an independent clause. You of course need to go through and do the proper analysis, but if you feel like something is missing or that you are left wanting more information or you don't completely have a clear picture about what the statement, the intended statement or essential meaning is, that's usually indicative of a dependent clause. And we'll get some examples of that right now. So I have some examples here of some clauses. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I'd like you to go through 1 through 4 and determine whether the clauses are independent or dependent. So I'll keep track of the time here in this pinkish color, but I'll give you 2 minutes. Please complete 1 through 4. Okay, so if we look at number 1, the train took the short route. So we have a subject, which is train. We have a verb, so I'll put an S here, subject for train. We have a verb for took, and then we have a predicate, the short route. So notice that the short route describes everything else. It provides the minor details of what the train is actually taking, or what characteristics pertain to the route, to what the train is taking, quote, taking. We have a subject, we have a verb, so we have an independent clause. Number 2, all of a sudden, the train. Now we have this introductory clause, all of a sudden, and then we have a subject, the train. But we don't have a verb, so this is a dependent clause. Number 3, although he would say, so you have to watch out for those, for these modifying words like although. There's these conditional, there's a condition that is implied with the word although. It's setting up a contrast with a preceding clause. And so if you don't have another clause that is providing that contrast, you're kind of left with this lacking feeling with the sentence or with the expression. So this phrase, although he would say, is a dependent phrase. It requires something else in order to contrast with it. First of all, we would need to complete the clause, although he would say what, right? There's no answer there. You feel lacking of information, or that there is a lacking of information. And furthermore, once you have completed that clause, you would need to contrast it with something in order for it to make sense with that introductory conditional word, although. And number 4, they ran. So this is really testament, for number 3, the subject here is he, but we don't have, and we say would say. There is a verb here, but it's really all linked on to this conditional word, although. I just want to make sure that was clear. And if there's any questions, please let me know, either in the live chat function or in the comment section below. Number 4, they ran. So we have a subject, they. We have a verb, ran. So we don't have a predicate, but a predicate isn't necessary to have a complete sentence. So we do have all the necessary components. Therefore, this is an independent clause. Okay, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm going to give you 2 more minutes. Please look at these 4 questions and determine whether they are independent or dependent. Okay, so let's look at these four problems. Number 5, instead of the others. So you have this conditional word instead that's going to contrast with another clause. So when you hear that, if somebody were to come up to you and say instead of the others, you're still lacking some type of contrast, you're lacking more detail that's necessary. So this is a dependent clause. 6 is tricky because it's actually a combination. So it wasn't Wednesday, was it? So this is this is stated in an interrogative form. In other words, it's a question. So with a question, it is absolutely fine to combine a independent clause with a question by separating it with a comma. So it wasn't Wednesday is an independent clause. We have a subject, which is it. We have a verb, which is wasn't. The negative is kind of implied to be is an adverb technically, but we kind of include it as like a phrasal verb, or we at least think of it as included. But we have a subject, we have a verb, so we have a independent clause, and then also was it is also a independent clause, but it's just in an interrogative form. So this would have to be punctuated with a question mark here, but this is an independent clause. It can stand on its own as its own sentence. Number 7, on a Wednesday. On a Wednesday what, right? So there's obviously some lacking information that's clearly indicative of a dependent clause. Oops. And 8, 2 of 3. Again, 2 of 3 what? There's one noun, which is pertaining 2 of the 3 something, but we don't have anything else, and we don't have a verb. So this is also a dependent clause. Okay, if you have any questions, then please let me know. That was just a brief warm-up to remind you of the differences between dependent and independent clauses. Let's get into the subject matter for today. So remember, the overarching rule here is that singular subjects require singular verbs, and plural subjects require plural verbs. Now, what you can do to make this easier is I think of as nouns as going with common sense and verbs as going against common sense. What you'll see is that English is highly irregular. There's a lot of exceptions to these general rules. However, if you think of nouns as going with common sense or making common sense, and verbs being the tricky ones, you can kind of come up with a system that will help you out. So for example, nouns make common sense. So a plural noun you would expect to end in S, and a singular noun you would not expect to end in S or to have no S because it's singular. Verbs are opposite that. So a singular verb you would usually, and remember there's a lot of exceptions, you would usually expect a singular verb to end in S. And you would usually expect a plural verb to not end in S. It's the opposite of what happens to nouns. So I think of nouns as going with common sense, verbs as going against common sense. So then when I'm trying to partition out whether the word should or conjugate the verb appropriately, whether it should or should not end in S, I think of the rule with nouns and I just reverse it with verbs. If there's any questions, then please let me know. That's kind of a paraphrasement of this paragraph right here. Let's get into the general rule though. So today's lesson is on phrases that contain the word of. So in general, when a phrase contains the word of, you're going to be guided by the subject that precedes the word or that comes before the pronoun, the preposition of. So, for example, the pack of pencils is on the table. If you understand that the true subject of this sentence is pack, not pencils, because it's one pack made up of many pencils, you would pick the correct verb conjugation to be is. It would be incorrect to say the pack of pencils are on the table, because it's one pack made up of several pencils. So it is singular. If you have any questions, then please let me know. So you're going to be guided by the word before the preposition of. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. I'd like you to look at 1 through 4. I'll keep track of the time right here. And you're going to be underlining the subject once, and then selecting A or B based on the correct conjugation of the verb, depending on which subject you identify. Okay, so you have 3 minutes. I'll keep track of the time, and then we'll go through these. Okay, so let's look at these. So number 1, the set of tracks is or are clear and well preserved. So we have a phrase containing the preposition of. We're going to be guided by the noun preceding the preposition, and that's set. It's one set of many tracks, but it's still just one set. So it should be singular is. The set of tracks is clear and well preserved. Number 2, a line of trash is or are winding around the trees. Again, we have one line, and still trash is a collective noun. So if you were talking about like pieces of trash, that would be plural. But just trash is actually singular. But that doesn't matter anyways, because we're guided by the noun preceding the preposition of. So it still should be singular is. A line of trash is winding around the trees. Number 3, the box of gifts is or are waiting on the porch for you. Again, we have a phrase containing the preposition of, so we're guided by the noun before of, which is box. It's one box of many gifts, but it's still just one box. Oops, sorry. So it should be is. And number 4, a list of items is or are posted on the refrigerator. It's one list of many items, but it's still just one list. So the subject is list, and the correct verb conjugation would be is. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, let's take a look at these 4. So now, instead of making it pretty clear-cut as to is versus are, which you can clearly tell is singular versus plural, now you need to analyze what the true subject of the sentence is, identify whether it's singular or plural, and then correctly conjugate the verb that's listed in the underlined portion. I'll give you 3 minutes, and then we'll go through. Okay, so let's look at these 4 problems. Number 5, a bucket of marbles wobble or wobbles on the floor. So we have one bucket made up of many marbles, but it's still one bucket. So the subject here is bucket. Bucket is singular, so we want a singular verb. Remember that verbs are tricky. They go opposite common sense. So if we would normally expect a plural noun to end in S, then a plural verb is not going to end in S. If we normally expect a singular noun to not end in S, we would expect a singular verb to end in S. So we want a singular verb. Singular nouns usually do not end in S, so a singular verb usually will end in S. So we want wobbles. A bucket of marbles wobbles on the floor. Number 6. The bin of litter stay or stays in the driveway all night. So we have bin, the subject, the noun preceding the preposition of is going to be the true subject of the sentence. So we have bin, which is singular. We want a singular verb. A singular noun usually will not end in S, so a singular verb usually will end in S. So we want the verb stays. 7, an expungement of charges wipe or wipes her criminal record clean. So we have an expungement is the singular subject in this sentence, so we want a singular verb. Singular nouns usually do not end in S. Singular verbs usually do end in S. So we want wipes. An expungement of charges wipes her criminal record clean. And 8, the roll of stickers divide or divides the table in the middle. We have the subject roll, which is a singular subject. Singular nouns do not usually end in S, so singular verbs are the opposite of that. They usually do end in S, so we want the singular verb divides. It's a little counterintuitive. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, let's go on to the second rule, and this rule is going to cover the exceptions to the first rule, obviously. So we have the general rule that when we have the phrase when we have a phrase containing the preposition of, we're guided by the noun that precedes the preposition or comes before it. However, when we're talking about or using a phrase that indicates a portion, a majority, a fraction, or a percentage, anything like that, that indicates some type of portion, then the true subject is actually after the word of. So, for example, 1/4 of the cake has been eaten versus 1/4 of the cakes have been eaten. Notice that when the subject is cake, the verb is singular, has. When the subject is plural, cakes, the subject is plural, have been eaten. So, whenever we're talking about something that indicates a portion or a fraction of something, a majority, anything like that, we're actually going to be guided by the noun after the preposition of. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, let's get into some examples. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. I'd like you to underline the subject once, and then select A or B based on the correct conjugation of the verb in the following sentences. So I'll keep track of the time down here. You have 3 minutes. Okay, so remember, when the phrase indicates some type of portion, we're guided by the noun that precedes, proceeds, not precedes. Proceeds meaning coming after the preposition of. So number one, a bunch of people is or are gathering down by the beach. So we're guided by the noun after of, which is people. People is a plural noun. It's an irregular plural noun because it doesn't end in S, but it definitely is plural. It's more than one person. So we need a plural verb, are. A bunch of people are gathering down by the beach. Number two, a small fraction of the community is or are against the new provision passed by the Homeowners Association. So we're guided by the noun after of because we're talking about a small fraction of something. So the subject here is community. Community is singular. So we need a singular verb, is. Number three, some of the whales is or are migrating here about this time of year. So some of indicates a portion. So we're guided by the noun after the preposition of, which is whales. Whales is a plural noun, so we need a plural verb. So we're going to select are. Some of the whales are migrating here about this time of year. And number four, a portion of the group is or are eating lunch at the pavilion. So a portion is indicating a portion, so we're guided by the noun group. Group is a singular noun. It's one group made up of many members, but it's one group unto itself. So we need a singular verb, is. A portion of the group is eating lunch at the pavilion. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Please look at questions 5 through 8. Now you have to correctly conjugate the verb that's not just is versus are. Okay, so 3 minutes. Okay, so let's look at 5 through 8. Number 5 says a percentage of the pie has or have not been eaten. So a percentage indicates a portion, so we're guided by the noun after the preposition of. That's going to be pie. Pie is singular, so we need a singular verb, has. Number 6, an overwhelming majority of the employees prefer or prefers a flexible work schedule versus the traditional Monday through Friday schedule. So an overwhelming majority indicates a portion, so we're guided by the noun after of, which is employees. Employees is plural, so we need a plural verb. Plural nouns usually do end in S, so plural verbs usually are not going to end in S. So we want the plural verb prefer. An overwhelming majority of the employees prefer a flexible work schedule versus the traditional Monday through Friday schedule. 7, only about half of the workforce contribute or contributes to a 401k investment account. So only about half indicates a portion, so we're guided by the noun workforce, which is singular. Singular nouns, can't speak there. Singular nouns usually do not end in S, so singular verbs usually will end in S, opposite common sense. So we want the singular verb contributes. And number 8, the older third of the volunteers want or wants longer break periods. So the older third indicates a portion, so we're guided by the noun volunteers, which is plural. We need a plural verb. Plural nouns usually do end in S, so plural verbs usually do not end in S. So we want the plural verb want. The older third of the employees want longer break periods. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, we're going to get into a review here, so I'm going to mix them all up. So some of these are going to be a little bit tricky. Some of them are straightforward. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes for each of these drill sets, so you can really think through them. I'll keep track of time here. But you have 5 minutes. Please look at questions 1 through 4, please. Okay, so let's look at these four. Number one, the line of fires string or strings through the hills. So we're not indicating a portion, it's one line made up of many fires. So the subject here is line. Line is singular, so we need a singular verb. Remember, singular nouns usually do not end in S, so singular verbs usually do end in S. So we want the singular verb strings. The line of fires strings through the hills. Number two, a large portion of children prefer or prefers French fries over broccoli. So here, a large portion indicates a portion, so we're guided by the word after the preposition of, which is children. Children is plural, so we need a plural verb. Plural nouns usually do end in S, so plural verbs usually will not end in S. So we want the plural verb prefer. A large portion of children prefer French fries over broccoli. Number three, a cluster of E. coli bacteria double or doubles about every 20 minutes. So we're talking about one cluster made up of many E. coli bacteriums. So one cluster is singular. We need a singular verb. Singular nouns usually do not end in S. So singular verbs usually do end in S. So we want the singular verb doubles. A cluster of E. coli bacteria doubles about every 20 minutes. Number four, a modest portion of the students pack or packs their own lunch. So a modest portion indicates a portion. So we're guided by the noun after the preposition of, which is students. Students is a plural a plural noun, so we would need a plural verb. Plural nouns usually do end in S, so plural verbs usually do not end in S. So we want the plural verb pack. A modest portion of the students pack their own lunch. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to give you 5 more minutes. Please look at 5 through 8. Okay, looking at 5 through 8. So number 5, a gaggle of geese fly or flies south for the winter. So that actually is correct terminology. Groups of animals have very strange words, have very strange names in English. So it's like a gaggle of geese, a pride of lions, a flock of birds. There's many different quite strange names, but that actually is what a group of geese is called. It's called a gaggle. But that is, we have one gaggle of many geese. So our subject here is singular. Singular nouns usually do not end in S. So singular verbs usually do end in S. So we need flies, the singular flies. A gaggle of geese flies south for the winter. 6, an unidentifiable group of flying insects hover or hovers over the lamp. So unidentifiable is a modifier modifying the noun group. It's one group of many flying insects, so don't be misled by the modifications here. It's one group, so that's the subject, it's singular. We need a singular verb. So singular nouns usually do not end in S, singular verbs usually will end in S. So we want hovers, the singular verb hovers. An unidentifiable group of flying insects hovers over the lamp. 7, that small percentage of athletes disqualify or disqualifies the rest of the team. So the small percentage is indicative of a portion, so we're guided by the noun that precedes the preposition of, or comes after the preposition of. So we're talking about the noun athletes as the true subject. Athletes is plural. Plural nouns usually end in S, or plural verbs usually do not end in S. So we want the verb disqualify. That small percentage of athletes disqualify the rest of the team. And 8, 1/5 of the horses train or trains daily. 1/5 indicates a portion, which is a fraction. 1/5 indicates a fraction, which is a portion of something. So we're guided by the noun horses, which is plural. Plural nouns usually end in S, so plural verbs usually do not end in S, so we want the plural verb train. If you have any questions, then please let me know. Otherwise, let's move on to set B. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Please underline the subject once, then select A or B based on the correct conjugation of each verb in the following sentences. I didn't read these before, and I do apologize. I do want to make it a habit of reading these for everybody that, for whom that would be helpful. Number 1, a wide variety of candy sell or sells well. Number 2, 2/3 of the town has or have internet connection. Number 3, 2 groups of children stand or stands on the sidewalk. And number 4, the meager portion of scraps sprinkle or sprinkles the dinner platter. I'll give you 5 minutes. Okay, looking at 1 through 4, number 1 is tricky. It says a wide variety of candy sell or sells well. So it might seem counterintuitive, but you need to go off of the grammar rules. Don't always trust your ear. Your ear may mislead you sometimes because we're used to talking colloquially, meaning in everyday language, and we don't speak 100% grammatically correct when we talk. We don't, we don't use standard written English. When somebody comes up to you and says, "How are you doing?" you say, I'm good." That's not technically correct, but we understand the meaning that the other person's trying to convey. So we have these leniencies in spoken language, but with standard written English, there are grammatical rules we must abide by. And so we have to go back to our rule book. If we have a phrase that contains of, we're usually going to be guided by the noun after, or that precedes the word of. However, if we're talking about some portion, is it one variety of candy or is it some portion of candy? So here, it's one wide variety, and it sounds counterintuitive, but it is one variety. It may be wide, there may be many varieties, many different types of candies in that variety, but it is one variety of candy that sells well. So a wide variety of candy, we're going to be guided by when we indicate, this phrase indicates a portion, so we're going to be guided by the noun candy, which is singular. Singular nouns usually end in S, so singular verbs are counterintuitive that. They go against common sense, so they usually are not going to end in S. So a wide variety of candy sell well. Number 2, 2/3 of the town has or have internet connection. So 2/3 indicates a portion. So 2/3 of the town, we're going to be guided by the noun town, which is singular. If we have a singular noun, we need a singular verb. Singular nouns do not usually end in S, so singular verbs usually do end in S. Here, it's a little bit counterintuitive because we have an irregular stem changing, a spell change in the conjugation of the verb have. We're going from has to have. So here we want a singular verb, and that singular verb is has. 2/3 of the town has internet connection. Number 3, 2 groups of children stand or stands on the sidewalk. So it's 2 groups. Here, it's 2 groups. So we're not indicating a portion, but it's more than one group. So groups is singular, groups is plural. So we have a plural subject requiring a plural verb. Plural nouns usually end in S, so plural verbs usually do not. So 2 groups of children stand on the sidewalk. Number 4, the meager portion of scraps sprinkle or sprinkles the dinner platter. So here we're talking, the meager portion obviously indicates a portion or a percentage. So we're guided by the noun after of. That's scraps. Scraps is plural. Plural nouns usually end in S, so plural verbs usually will not end in S. So we want the plural verb sprinkle. The meager portion of scraps sprinkle the dinner platter. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, let's keep rolling. I'm going to give you 5 more minutes. Please complete 5 through 8. Actually, I'm going to change this to 4 minutes, just for time's sake. Okay, let's look at 5 through 8. Number 5 says a fraction of the yard need or needs trimming before the weekend. So a fraction indicates a portion, so we're going to be guided by the noun that proceeds or comes after the preposition of. That's going to be yard. Yard is singular, so we need a singular verb. Singular nouns usually do not end in S, so singular verbs usually will end in S. So we want the singular verb needs. A fraction of the yard needs trimming before the weekend. Number 6, a vase or a vase, however you want to pronunciate that A, if you want to give it a long A or a short A. But a vase of beautiful flowers gleam or gleams in the sunlight. So this is one vase made up of many beautiful flowers, but we're guided by the noun before of, because this is the standard general rule. So we want a singular verb. Singular nouns usually do not end in S, so singular verbs usually do end in S. So we want gleams. 7, the beds of beautiful flowers complement or complements the rows of flowering fruit trees. So the beds of beautiful flowers. There are many beds made up of many beautiful flowers. So now it's a little bit tricky because the word that precedes the preposition of is also plural. So we are looking for a plural verb to match that plural subject, beds. So plural nouns usually do end in S. Plural verbs, therefore, usually do not end in S. So we want the plural verb complement. The beds of beautiful flowers complement the rows of flowering fruit trees. And just a side note here on vocab, complement with an E versus complement with an I. So to complement with an E means to add together to make a whole. Complement with an I means to praise. Right? So if you give someone a compliment, that's with an I, compliment with an I. If you give somebody a free piece of bread at a restaurant, that's a complimentary with an E. That's a complimentary piece of bread. Okay, just a little bit of vocab there. And number 8, a few of the flower beds stand or stands out from the others. So a few of indicates a portion, so we're going to be guided by the noun that comes after the preposition of. That's going to be the flower beds, plural. So flower is a modifier, modifying the word beds. Beds is a plural noun, so we need a plural verb. Plural nouns usually end in S, so plural verbs usually do not end in S. So we want the plural verb stand. A few of the flower beds stand out from the others. Okay, if you have any questions, then please let me know. I'm going to do like a lightning round here just with the time. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes. Please complete these 3 questions, and these will be the last problems that will bring us up to the end of class today. Okay, so 1 through 4. Number 1, 4/5 of the group vote or votes to go to the museum. So 4/5 indicates a portion, so we're going to be guided by the noun that comes after the preposition of. That's going to be group. Group is singular. Singular nouns usually do not end in S, so singular verbs usually will end in S. So we want the singular verb votes. 4/5 of the group votes to go to the museum. Number 2, 3 packs of paper is or are stored on the shelf. So it's 3 packs of paper, so it's 3 packs of paper. We're guided, this is the general rule, so we're guided by the noun that comes before, I should be doing this, before the preposition of. And so packs is plural, so we need a plural verb. The plural conjugation of the verb to be is are. 3 packs of paper are stored on the shelf. Number 3, a lot of them go or goes to the shore on the weekend. So a lot indicates a portion, so we're going to be guided by the noun that comes after the word of. That's this plural preposition, this plural pronoun them. Them is a plural word, a plural noun like I just said, so we need a plural verb. Plural nouns usually end in S, so plural verbs will usually not end in S, so we want the plural verb go. And you can test a few simple sentences out. He goes to the park, they go to the park. So you can kind of construct it to see if it makes sense with your mind's ear. Number 4, a bundle of litter need or needs to be discarded. So a bundle of litter, it's one bundle made up of litter. So bundle is the noun that's going to show the true subject. Bundle is singular, so we need a singular verb. Singular nouns usually do not end in S, so singular verbs usually will end in S. So we need the singular verb needs. A bundle of litter needs to be discarded. Okay, if you have any questions, then please let me know in either the live chat function or you can drop a comment in the section below. Otherwise, thank you guys very much for signing into my live stream. I really appreciate it, especially now we have more than 100 subscribers, so I have this permanent location that I'm really excited about. So I really appreciate everybody's support. Dr. Todd, do you want a cookie? You're going to say goodbye to everybody? So if you have any questions, like I said, just let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to talk to everybody tomorrow. You want to come up here? Just say goodbye to everybody. You give paw. You say bye. Oh, very good. All right, thank you guys very much for signing in. I'll talk to you all tomorrow for our math session.